Well, today we're sitting down with somebody who's not just talking about change, but actively stepping into it. He's running for state house here in Oklahoma, and he's already been part of legislation that's impacting lives all across this nation. I have Cole Stevens with me today on the podcast. How are you today, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me, Dustin.
Good.
I appreciate it. Yep.
Well, man, listen, I'm so excited to have you on today and for people to get to know you, because I've learned a lot about you in the last few months that we've got to know each other, and what you've been working on impacts everybody across this nation greatly. And so I'm honored to have you on today, brother.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been quite the journey over the past year, and there's still a lot more to come. Like you said, we ran some state legislation here, and that's kind of what got my journey started. Now I've got some other federal policy that's been in the limelight quite a bit. So we're working through the kinks, and I'm learning a lot. That's what the entire journey for me has just been so many learning opportunities. I feel so blessed that the doors that God has opened for me, just trying to continue to walk through the right ones and let him close the right ones.
That's good.
So it's been a really cool experience.
That's
awesome. A lot to juggle, right?
Yeah.
But it's been so many blessings getting to be out in the local community, and then also get to be a part of like state and federal. Get to go to DC, get to go to the White House, do all the things, and see like how our government works. It's biblical.
Yeah.
Good leadership and good
Absolutely.
Government. 1 Timothy 1, verse 8, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's been a really good experience, and I'm excited to continue this race.
Well, listen, I'm excited to get into some of these things, because people don't know exactly, we're going to talk about the Delilah Law for one here in a little bit, but also some other things about what you've been working on, because people don't know about it.
Yeah.
And I've been telling a lot of people since we've talked over the past few months, I've been telling a lot of people about it and how greatly this impacts, everybody.
Yeah.
And so before we get into that, let's talk about you personally just for a minute. So people kind of get to know you a little bit more.
Absolutely.
We've had lots of talks, but, I want people to know a little bit more about you beyond politics. Who is really Cole Stevens beyond politics?
And I grew up in Middleburg, Oklahoma, went to the K through 8, got 2 older brothers. And then when my middle brother transferred in, we were 2 years apart in age. So at the time, Middleburg and Blanchard had different schedules for holidays. And so I didn't actually get to graduate the 8th grade. I transferred between 6th and 7th when my oldest brother graduated from the 8th grade, and went to Blanchard High School, finished valedictorian, went on to OU to play baseball, and then jumped into the family business, got into the trucking space. So my father, Kenny, started the business 46 years ago, Stevens Trucking out of Oklahoma City. And, now I would say, like a true born again Christian, like this experience has just completely revived my spirit. And, have the most beautiful wife, Tara, and 3 incredible children that keep me grounded. And so, I would say doting husband and father, and just
something happens to you when you have children.
Oh man, especially girls too.
Yeah.
I love my boy. So much, but man, those girls softened me up, because I was raised in a household of all boys. So it's just brothers. And then a lot of my uncles and things like that, kind of in the spread family, it was very male dominant. And so getting to have, a oldest girl be my first, and then also my youngest, she's kind of bringing up the rear. Yeah. She's 3. Oh. And man, just they got me wrapped around their finger.
That's awesome.
So hard. Yeah. But it's like, I don't know, it's given me such a different perspective on life from like what I thought, everything, athletics and work and right.
Well, because from what I've learned a little bit about you, you were at OU playing baseball. Like your plan was to go play professional. You were going a different route than where you're going.
I was hoping to, and then I ended up in trucking. Right? Yeah. What are like and now
little detour.
Yeah, little slight 10-year detour. Yeah. But Dustin, it's led me to like the best places, and again, God's opened those doors for me that I never could have dreamed of. Right? Like you talk about God's plan versus your own. Like I had my idea. I was stubborn. You know, I got injured. I'm gonna work through that. You know, I'm gonna do it. You know, me, I, and not whatsoever. Like, it has been God's plan through and through. But it's been, once I gave that up and I truly like gave control to Christ in my life, like I realized that the plan that He had for me is so much greater than what I could have ever dreamed of. Especially when you like step back and just look at all the dominoes that fell to get you there. You know, I do. I have a wonderful wife, wonderful marriage. My children are just like, they're just good kids. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure everybody says that about their kids, but like they're wonderful children. And like now I get to set the example of like what a godly father and a godly husband.
Sure. It's a big responsibility. It's weighty.
It is.
Yeah, it's the number one ministry you got.
Yep.
For sure. You know, I was just talking about, similar to what you're saying, this past Sunday is our Palm Sunday message. And, you know, what the people were expecting, a triumphant king.
That's right.
And what he actually became as was something totally different. And so even today, it's, I believe one of the biggest struggles people have is what we expect Christ to be.
That's right.
Or why we choose to follow him. That may not be the right reason even sometimes. But also if we start submitting our life wholly to him, the path and plan that he has is so much better. Until you step into it, you don't ever realize it.
That's right.
And won't walk into it. So,
amen.
Yeah. So
we went over that, like the expectation thing, and he comes in on a donkey. You know, just like they thought some big stallion, some big, you know, king, but he's the King of Kings, and like he defies all expectations.
And really the triumphant. It's the greatest triumphant story the world has ever seen, because he literally defeated death. Yeah. He defeated sin. Amazing. He became our sin. I mean, like, for everybody in the world, past, present, future. So, and they didn't see it, they didn't understand it, you know, and they're expecting, you know, like a David coming in, triumphant in battle. But
it's so beautiful because how many things do we still not understand, right? We think we want what we want, or when we want it, or how we want it.
It's true.
And we don't understand just what his glory can do and what his power can do in your life, like genuinely. So I loved that sermon.
Oh man,
yesterday.
It's one of my favorite times, Palm Sunday. Yep. And you know, of course, we call it Resurrection Sunday, but you know, I don't like Easter, but we call it Resurrection Sunday because that's what it is. But yeah, it's some of my favorite times and favorite messages to speak, because it's just all about Christ and his victory, you know, that we get to walk in. So praise God. Well, that's awesome. So what, from wonderful family, you're working in the family business, what inspired or caused you to step into this political arena? What was it?
Yeah, so I'll kind of backtrack a little bit. Okay. You know, I stepped in the business January 1st, 2016 was my first, you know, official day right after I had graduated from university, and got to work. You know, 2016 was a okay year, just really rolled up my sleeves, learned a lot about the business. Back then we might have had, you know, 100 or under 100 employees or something like that. And then we went through what was called the electronic logging device. So ELDs, you see the tablets and stuff now. So instead of getting to like fudge your hours and do all your stuff with paper logs, that was a big disruptor in 2017. And it caused this like big boom in 2018. Well, then everything that goes up must come down, right? Yeah. And so everybody labeled 2019 the trucking bloodbath was what they called it, because like so many people jumped in 2018 when rates and everything went through the roof. And just as the market was starting to recover, you had this COVID. Event, right? So, you know, March, whatever that was, 10th, 11th of 2020, it actually kind of affected here with the Thunder game when Chris Paul runs off. That was really like the straw that broke the camel's back. And then all of a sudden, like, we're canceling NBA games, like the whole nine. So the world shuts down. Yeah. And I worked 72 days straight, like not knowing, right? Like I was probably a really bad Christian too at the time, like not taking a Sabbath and thinking that like genuinely, when I say like I'm a born again Christian, like I mean, like I haven't always just made perfect decisions, but like I thought I could work myself out of it and just help the family business. Worked 72 days straight. Wore my hazmat. I've got pictures, the whole thing. Wore my hazmat suit to clean everything, keep it open, because again, we were very essential. We were deemed essential employees. And so support staff for truckers was a huge thing if you reflect on COVID. And so the world shut down, for about 60 days. And then I worked a couple more straight. And world reopens, everything just, booms in late 20 and through 21. And then all of a sudden, like February of 2022 comes and everything just starts falling off a cliff. And I'm the data guy, right? I'm chief strategy officer. So like contracting, pricing, emerging technology, data, all the forward facing things in the business. And like after a couple years of just down, you're expecting to have some type of recovery because, right? I mean, it's just, it's kind of equal. It's natural economics. Well, all the demand indicators for tonnage and the things that we need to move keep coming back, but like pricing just keeps getting worse. And I mean, like we're just getting destroyed, like the entire American trucking ecosystem. And so in December of 2024, it's kind of funny, what started the pandemic was a Thunder game, and what like rocked my world was I went to a Thunder game with some fuel executives, and they told me, hey, our Chicagoland fuel sales are up between 300 and 400% year over year. And I'm like, what? Like Chicago has always been like a great market coming out of, but that would explain it if everything's like, underwater, prices are cut in half. And he's like, have you heard about all these illegal aliens driving semi trucks? And I'm like, what? Like, no, because I'm like, we don't hire illegal immigrants to drive our semi trucks, right? We hire Americans. We highly vet. You have to have a certain number of years experience to drive for our family fleet. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I looked these guys up out in Arkansas, which, it turned out to be American Truckers United. And again, got busy right there in January and February of 25. And then in March, I was on spring break with my kids and I saw this terrible accident down in Austin, Texas. It was like March 15th or something like that. Ethiopian guy, couldn't speak any English, pulling an Amazon chassis, just ran over 5 people, killed them. I think he ran over a lot more. I think there was like 17 people injured in that crash. Didn't speak any English. And I saw the video aftermath on social media of him like not understanding the word death, like dead. Like another, truck driver was talking to him, was like, there are people dead back here. And he did not comprehend it. And that's when it like was like, what these guys are working on is real. So that's really where like my journey started with like the policy, because I started following, Shannon Everett and Harvey Beach at American Truckers United out of Arkansas and seeing what they were working on. And so April comes and I finally get a meeting with Senator Sacchieri here out of Blanchard. I think it was like April 16th by the time, and that was my fault. I don't want to sound like it was her fault that I couldn't get a meeting. She got me a meeting like the first day she had available. And it was like, hey, I come in, sit down, talk to her, tell her what's going on. So I go across the street to Love's Travel Stop and I start doing my own driver interviews. Hey, who do you drive for? Just, a lot of media people do that, right? They'll go to the fuel island and interview people. Dustin, 40 to 50% had no idea what I was saying to them. Hey, who do you drive? Hey, which truck's yours? Right? And I mean, just blank stare, like we can't communicate. And usually they got their phone out with like Google Translate. And then it started dawning on me that like, it was this perfect storm of like automatic transmissions, open border crisis with the failed policy of the Biden administration and things like tools like Google Translate that didn't used to exist. Right. So they could still get by, and these mega corporations could, use middlemen, which are freight brokers, to take advantage and kind of claim immunity on the back end from wrecks and things like, and we'll get into it in a bit, just like Delilah Coleman. And so I go sit down with Senator Sacchieri and I tell her, and I mean, literally I shed tears in her office. I mean, I cried like a little girl. I mean, I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like it's destroying all of our livelihood. And I mean, like I work a lot. My brothers work a lot. My father works a lot. Like we take a lot of responsibility on our shoulders, knowing that like we provide a good amount of people jobs and that like we've got to keep the doors open. And at that point, Dustin, it was like, I don't know if we're going to survive.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if the American trucking industry can survive. And so we get the policy. Arkansas is so deep and dark. It's like you just think Arkansas, but you got to remember politically who's been in Arkansas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Maybe. I know.
Yep. and who's also
Yeah.
gigantic mega corporations and mega logistics companies based out of Arkansas that have a lot of power.
Oh, yeah.
They killed the ATU's bill by putting up another bill. So they had House Bill 1569 up, which really had some teeth in it, to go after the illegal aliens. And specifically their journey really started with the English language proficiency stuff. And so they basically get their bill killed because it's never heard, and I don't think it ever even came out of committee. Well, they pass House Bill 1745, which was like nothing, and everybody thought, oh, Arkansas, they passed something. Well, I knew the story, and I was like, they pulled the old switcheroo, which is real common in politics, right? So I learned how that worked. That was like my first learning of like the full civics process of like just how nasty like bureaucratic positions and like associations even, because these are associations that are supposed to represent American trucking or like Arkansas or Oklahoma trucking companies, right? So I see all that happen, and at the time I didn't even know session, right? Like the deadlines, and literally, Dustin, by the grace of God, every day that it needed to move out of the opposite chamber, because it was Senate Bill 20, the Safe and Secure Roads Act, it passed the last day that it could. So in 6 weeks, and I mean, if you reflect, we had like torrential floods, the rain last April, the last week in April when this is passing committee, there was 4 or 5, I think there was 5 rollover accidents with semi-trucks. When whistleblowers would come to me, 4 of them were illegal aliens that couldn't speak English. So I had all this behind the scenes, right? And I'm telling all these people this stuff. And it's like, this is real. This is happening. I think people thought this kid's like a wackadoodle. Yeah. But a lot of the highway patrolmen and things were like, no, you guys should listen to this kid. It's for real. So we slapped the emergency clause on there that it's a true public safety crisis, and that like once it's signed into law and passes, like it's immediate that it goes into effect. But there were some things that happened behind closed doors, and there was some stalling that happened in the month of May that like that ultimately is why I decided to make my run, because I saw some really, really nasty chess moves on an issue that is probably 90% plus bipartisan for public road safety, because Democrats, Republicans, Independents, we all have to be on the roadway. Absolutely. So it's pretty common sense that somebody driving an 80,000-pound rig needs to be able to speak English, and also should be vetted as to how they're in this country. Whether
not
it's
only that, but I mean, I have a commercial driver's license. I have a CDL. I mean, I had to go to a school. Yeah. I had to do, a couple weeks worth of training, driving, and then pass the test. I passed mine. Most people fail it the first time they go actually take the test. Sometimes multiple times.
You basically have to be like a diesel mechanic to do your pre-trip inspection.
I mean, you got to know a lot of stuff. Yes. I mean, it's supposed to be, and it's designed that way to keep people
for
safe.
Safety, absolutely. Just like an airline pilot.
And right? I have to go do a physical every year because I have a CPAP, and I don't even use my CDL now, but I'm not losing it because it was so hard to get.
That's right.
So for me, it irks me big time to hear that somebody can come across the border, citizenship in a couple days at a sanctuary city, and get a CDL license without having any training at all. None. That's terrifying. Yep. And how many people have done that? And whoever allowed that to happen needs to be held accountable. Correct. For anything that happened in here, because that is endangering millions of people's lives.
Correct. And that's what, like, this journey started as just English language proficiency. So I wrote a 3-page handwritten letter to Markwayne Mullin, and I took it to him at an event, and it was an unmarked envelope, and I said, this is a national security crisis. Please read this. And like, by the grace of God, he did. He read my letter and everything that I discovered up to that point beyond what the ATU was working on. And the ATU guys had kind of given me a template for like what they were thinking, a little bit speculative was was happening and like how we could combat it with English language proficiency and like their bill and whatnot. And he told me, I've got a meeting with Trump on Friday. I'll talk to him. And I'll never forget, I was going to see our largest customer up in Akron, Ohio, which is Goodyear Tire, big Lawton tire facility here in Oklahoma. Right? No secret. You can drive down there and see our trailers. And I was in the Charlotte airport with my dad, and my phone just starts blowing up. And I just started crying on the plane because I was like, holy cow, it was April 28th. It was the next Monday after I gave him that letter that Trump came out with an executive order, and it literally followed mine and the ATU's template on English language proficiency, calling for an audit of these non-domicile CDLs because we didn't know what a non-domicile CDL was. We don't hire those people, right? And so this all happens like in a couple of weeks. I mean, you talk about Dustin, I could go on we could be here till midnight tonight because this has been every day of my life since I said yes to God and said, like, I feel like you're calling me to do this. Like I could sit there and keep working myself at the business, that's my comfort zone. That's my pacifier and my blanket is, well, I'll just go do what I know to do. And I didn't know policy. That wasn't right. That was not my dream. I wasn't like, hey, I want to be a legislator. Right. But like my experience and then getting to learn what I've learned with watching how to run a bill, go through conference committees, emergency clause, what it takes, the vote structure, the signatures, all the things, and bouncing back and forth and deadlines. I enjoyed it like a crazy person, apparently. So everybody else in politics tells me, they're like, you're crazy. Maybe I am, but I enjoyed the process because I knew in my heart of heart that like I was going to work harder than anybody else. And lucky for us, we had Kendall Sacchieri and Jonathan Wilk, two freshman legislators, Dustin, get the Safe and Secure Roads Act passed through. And then it was one of only a handful the first day that Governor Stitt had ceremonial bill signings that he chose out of, hundreds and hundreds of bills. I think we were one of 5 on the first day, and he only ended up doing, a small tranche of ceremonial bill signings because he knew like this was a symbol and this was super important. And I think that really shined a light with the Safe and Secure Roads Act, and really we saw it ramp up right there in the summertime. And that's really whenever I was praying on, making a run, because again, I loved running the legislation and like how one word can change everything. Shall versus may, shall not versus shall, may versus may not, right? Like, and it leaves interpretation up, and like, some of those things are like very literal. So you got to work with staff and like attorneys, and that I do that type of thing in my day job, right? Like I do a lot of corporate governance and I do all the contracting and things. So again, I feel like my background, God just said, hey, here's a nice little pivot. That, you can, if you answer the call, you might be able to help some people here.
This was the moment for you that said, hey, this is where you feel like God was leading you into this. This was kind of that pivot moment. Hey, this is what I have for you, and I'm going to say yes to, and this is where I'm going to start making my run.
100%.
Last year.
Yep. And so like, June, the dust settles a little bit because it was like, literally April 16th through like May 29th or 30th, whatever they did, sine die. Because I think our bill passed maybe the day before sine die, which is when session ends, when budget's done, and they call session and say, hey, we're done for the 4 months. And had a couple weeks there that I really prayed with my wife, and I just was like, if the opportunity arises, right? Like I really do. I liked this, and I enjoyed the people, and doing procurement on the spend of our company and everything every year. It's a living, breathing thing for us. I was like, I do. I think if the opportunity arises that like, this is something I want to do. So we prayed and prayed and prayed. And then Brad Bowles calls me, who's my current representative, and says, hey, I'm running for Corporation Commission, which is a statewide race. Man, have you ever considered running? Because he was one of the first co-authors on our bill. He was a catcher at Dallas Baptist.
Oh yeah.
So I got some great stories about that too, about them beating us at OU. That's some of the most I've told Brad, that's some of the most I've ever run in my life was when we lost a midweek game to Dallas Baptist. And Brad obviously giggled about it. He's like, oh yeah, we got you. Big bad OU. He's like, we got your number. And he encouraged me, right? And so when that happened, my wife and I prayed on it for another week, and then that's when we decided to start doing a lot of the behind the scenes work. Was like very late June of 25, and then we led up to like the announcement in August at the Grady County Fair when we set up a little booth, and that was kind of our official, hey, we're launching a campaign for House District 51. And I just since then too, I've seen so many things. I mean, the race is incredible, getting to like understand campaigning, door knocking, strategy, digital marketing, like the whole thing. It's like running, it's like running another company, and you're the CEO over there too, with like trying to make sure your volunteers, are enthused, and that like you're in it for the right reasons with your messaging, and that like what's going on today is relevant compared to maybe what happened last year, because like it changes a lot, right? Like, there's one right now, like I think Brad's working heavily on with usage on utilities and things, data centers, right? I think a lot of people a couple of years ago probably were like, not that big a deal, but now boom, like that fast. Like people really don't understand, I think, how quick policy changes, because like the world is picking up pace with technologies and things. Yeah. But a lot of the ways that we legislate and whatnot are still the same way we've done it for a couple hundred years. And there's obviously nothing wrong with that. It's worked. I firmly believe in the structure of our government and our founding fathers and the Constitution. But the pace, it really is. When you see how hard good legislators work, it's really, really, really hard work.
It's a lot. It takes a lot.
It is. But like I enjoy it because I'm a big I think my dad used to give me grief. He's like, you ask why a lot. I'm like, yes, I do. Like, I want to know, why are we doing what we're doing, right? And so I feel like that fits well for policy. But so back to kind of the story about how all of this continued to progress kind of to today, March of 26. Kind of go through the summer, get some of the campaign stuff, really spend a lot of my time doing a lot of that. And then we hosted some Trump appointees in early August, might have been like August 10th or 11th. And again, by the grace of God, Dustin, like these two guys, they fly in. I know the older of the pair, don't know the younger guy whatsoever. And I'm like, man, who are these guys? Like they're, like director or assistant secretary of whatever. And I'm just like, I just know that they're appointees in the Trump admin and they might listen. They were literally here in Oklahoma City, again, proximity, by the grace of God, to review the FFA's air traffic control system, because the majority of that is designed or maintained. The maintenance program is here at the FAA in Oklahoma City. Yeah. And so they just pop over to the terminal out in El Reno, and it just so happens it was the day. We need to go back and look at the day that the bill was signed for the, like, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. The Safe and Secure Roads Act of 2025. It was the day that we had the ceremonial bill signing. So Shannon, the founder of American Truckers United, happens to be in Oklahoma City. And these guys are just like, we'll just pop over and see what these guys have to allow. We end up like ordering coffee in and everything. We end up being locked in our conference room for 4.5 hours, taking a deep dive, showing them everything. Wow. That the things that I can't talk about publicly about what we had discovered. The next day, that U-turn happens in Florida that kills those three, that all of a sudden, boom, national news. And like, again, here we go. But like, I couldn't have forced that. I couldn't have written a movie script that these guys were just going to happen to be at the FAA on that day. And the guy that started the movement was going to be here for the bill signing of the bill that we got months later. I mean, literally, like, we finished it in May. This is August. Wow. So all that happens and boom, it just blows up. And so again, my phone starts going crazy and everybody's like, hey, what's happening? What do you know? And we're kind of like the two experts. And at this time, like we'd had threats against our lives, like genuine threats. And so we were keeping a lot quiet that we knew what we knew because we knew that there was only a couple of us that had a lot of these details and like real specifics that weren't speculative. They were factual.
Yeah.
And then again in Oklahoma, there's just something about Oklahoma, Dustin, Operation Guardian hits. And I believe it's like September 23rd, 24th, 25th, those 3-day stings. And that was validation. That was when I just knew. Like I literally hit my knees and prayed that, God, this was it. This was what we needed publicly to break this thing loose.
Yeah. Talk about what that was.
So Operation Guardian is through our Department of Public Safety. And so what they did, they signed what's called a 287G agreement with ICE, which is that's where these bad actors took advantage of state versus federal powers. Again, learning like where the holes are within government and policy and enforcement with agencies and steering them toward the right actions. Federal government, in terms of commercial motor vehicles, has zero law enforcement arm geared toward CMVs, despite there being 3.5 million truck drivers on the road. It's all grant money from the federal level that gets pushed to the states, and then it's left up to them to enforce it. So $500 million a year. And you got states like California that printed the licenses that they did. Because again, people think, and I think they thought at the beginning, like, there's no way that there's all these fraudulent license, like, your kid goes and gets a fake when they're 19. No, these are real.
Yeah.
They're very real.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a fake ID. It was issued illegally. It was issued improperly and some flat out illegally. But the license itself checks out. And that's why our state law enforcement, it was the perfect crime. They were like, everything checks out. This guy, I don't know immigration status. Yeah. I'm state law enforcement. Right. I'm not federal. So we were one of the first behind, I believe, Florida. I think we were the second to get our 287G program up and off the ground. And thank God for the director of that program and for our commissioner, Tim Tipton of DPS. They hammered out in the west port of entry on I-40, Operation Guardian, in late September. And out of 500 vehicles that they pulled over, I think 400 of which were commercial motor vehicles, 121 illegal immigrants, and 91. So like 22, 23% of all semi-trucks that they pulled in on that sting were illegal immigrants driving them, not immigrants. Everybody gets very charged and polarized with, you hate immigrants. I'm like, man, no, not whatsoever. Yeah. I like to follow the law because it's biblical, and we are supposed to have borders as a country, right? 100%. These people can't. They're the very first.
Every
action
country in the world has a border.
Has borders.
It's ignorant.
That's right. And so, legit illegal aliens, like a lot of them, no license. I mean, because it's gotten that's the
thing that people don't realize. When you come across, you can get citizenship by just handed to you, and a commercial CDL license handed to you that is a real license.
So they found the loophole.
That's a problem.
They found the loophole, which is what's called an EAD, an employment authorization document. And on its face, it sounds like that is the way of dirty politics with both parties, right? Mm-hmm. Name something the opposite of what it does, like the Affordable Care Act, for instance, or, the Inflation Reduction Act, right? And I've learned all this, that it's like, it's evil.
Oh,
it's evil, right? It did not create affordable care. It created huge steals on the back ends for healthcare and pharmaceutical companies to take. Well, an employment authorization document does not actually give you a right to employment. Gives you a right to presence, not status in the country. In order to get a CDL and to work under any of those other visas or a regular non-domicile CDL from between state and state, you have to have legal status. Yeah. So they came out, and with that audit that we had back to our executive order, they called for the audit of the non-domicile CDLs. Well, right then, in late September, we had hit pieces put out on us in media from the largest associations in the country, basically calling us credit. There aren't millions of these people, which we never said there were millions. We said there are hundreds of thousands is our projection. When we got the validation from Operation Guardian that 23%.
Over 20%. That's a lot.
And they released it publicly on Breitbart. Belarus, Russia, China are foreign adversaries.
Yeah.
Fun fact, there wasn't a single Mexican or Canadian in that first sting, not a single Mexican, not a single Canadian CDL.
Wow.
Majority were from, Maine was India. I think it was like 30 or 31 or something like that. But then a ton from our foreign adversaries like China and Russia.
Wow.
And so then Secretary Duffy comes out, Secretary of Transportation, and says, hey, just from our initial findings from like 6 states, we found 194,000. So we had a number and we were
gosh.
Game on. Because it was like everybody.
Just imagine
109. That's 6 states.
That's what I'm saying. In 6 states, 194,000 drivers driving massive big rigs out there.
And driving
that aren't trained. They don't have real license.
They break the hours of service laws.
And,
so
and
they drive fit. We have a lot of data points on that now that we didn't, but they drive about 52% more than American drivers because we shut down for parking. And again, there's so many policy things tied to this that the American people have been robbed. That's why I fight so hard. Is not just for, but like I'm at the business every day, but I'm typically working on the policy stuff to try to fight this.
I mean, there's 2 things going on. Of course, it hurts the American trucking businesses everywhere, 100%, big time. It's putting them, it's losing a lot of people's jobs and fighting, and they're fighting from within.
But it also hurts the American people with taxpayer dollars.
Well, that too.
They're getting ready to siphon off like $275 million for truck parking. I'm like, if you get the illegal aliens out of all the rest stops that the American people paid for already, because American companies have terminals.
Absolutely. So from the revenue standpoint for the country, it's a huge deal. Also, I'm just saying from the safety.
No, public safety.
Safety thing, to me, it's like, and they're both extremely important if we're going to try to continue to have a nation that we can continue to be prosperous and have businesses that can sustain jobs and all these things. But the safety aspect of that is alarming. In 6 states, 200-something thousand. Big rigs, $90,000 trucks running down the road, wondering why you're having trouble. I have trouble all the time. Trucks, when they're on the highway, it's dangerous. I mean, and that's the reason why.
And when you don't know the person that's pulling it because they have not been properly vetted whatsoever, literally you have no idea who they are. You also have no idea what they're pulling. And so that goes into a whole nother deep, dark hole on
it's true.
Drug trafficking, human trafficking, potential for kinetic attacks. And that's whenever, it all led to this. And we went up in September to DC, and then we got invited back. In November, we got to brief Homeland Security Council, National Security Council at the White House.
Cool.
Think back to what our interstate highway system was designed for. It was to mobilize our military. And so if you talk about the fact that like these things could be hijacked, bridges, how fragile our interstate highway system is with only a handful of bad actors.
Sure.
I think the administration really was like, oh, wow. Like these rednecks from Oklahoma and Arkansas really stumbled upon something here. It was just.
I mean, let's talk because we're kind of getting into it a little bit here now. But the Delilah Law, that's kind of what you're going into. Let's talk about that and what that was and what it really is too. Yeah.
So actually, just this past week, I obviously have my state race, and I'm out knocking doors like every day that I'm not, having to travel with various things, but I also with timing want to see some of this stuff through that we started, especially that some of these guys started years ago, and that now we have the proper audience to be able to secure our roadways and to secure our supply chain because it's for national security. I mean, like I'm at the business, but like I don't even hardly see numbers anymore with health of the business. My concern is like protecting Americans on the roadway, like Delilah Coleman, and our national security integrity, because there are some things that I can't say publicly, but this is very real. It's as real as one could imagine. With a lot of data and factual data behind it now. The Delilah Law, which is what Trump called for in the State of the Union that first Tuesday in March. It's really a lot of the structure off the Safe and Secure Roads Act and what the ATU had worked on. So back in September, there was the Non-Domicile Integrity Act that Congressman Rouser out of North Carolina had authored. We went and met with them in their office, and they were wonderful. They had some concerns. We had some serious concerns, and they went back to the drawing board. We were concerned that the original Non-Domicile Integrity Act that he had authored was too heavy toward the executive branch. That way, if there's a change in guard, just like we open the borders, that it would be up to the discretion of the secretary with who could have CDLs, basically, and which visas. And so here, actually, just a couple of weeks ago, kind of after all this happened, there's patches of like, I can breathe a little bit, and then there's just patches of just craziness, but it's so good with the doors that God just blows open so quickly. That Delilah's Law, they completely changed all of it after Trump. They had been working on it behind the scenes, but they came out with Delilah's Law, one on the Senate with Senator Jim Banks, and then now Delilah's Law under Rouser on the House side.
Okay.
You do that, when you have enough time to, because there's different, again, I'm learning about the vehicles, as they call it, and the policy and the structures to why, you run like these mirror bills so that if something gets amended or they don't like something, it doubles your chances to get it through, because our civics process is that it has to pass both House and Senate depending on the rules. So it's really cool to I feel like I'm getting just this like firsthand experience in something that I'm comfortable with, like transportation. So it's teaching me a lot about how this stuff moves, and something like the supply chain is heavy between state and federal. So a lot of people be like, well, that's federal. Yeah, but like I talk to our state legislators almost every day, our current ones that have helped me. And they're talking to federal about what this could do, because again, the federal money that bounces back and forth with the state enforcement. So it very much does involve like state legislators, even though it's a federal issue. And one of the funding mechanisms in Delilah's Law is the fact that if you're going to receive federal funding, you have to have a 287G agreement with